So you want to add a data logger to your race car? Let me show you how quick and easy we can do it with a FuelTech Sportsman data logging harness. Hey guys, it's Andre with FuelTech USA, and today I'm going to be showing you how we take a working race car and add a data logger using our Sportsman data logging harness. Very simple process, two parts of it. This is the engine side of the harness, CPC connector to make it very simple to go through your firewall, inner part of the harness. Our good friend Felipe made another video that we'll link in the description. Go check it out if you want more details on it. But for now, we're going to go ahead and go through the install of this, show you just how quick and easy it is. Now, mind you, the harness is already routed on the car, right? So we did get that part out of the way, as well as installing the sensors in the positions that we want, right? But ultimately, the components that are on the harness are going to be the same, right? So we're going to have water, oil, fuel, trans temp, 202s, and a drive shaft sensor already integrated into the harness, with the possibility to expand it even further for 2 additional inputs if you're using a 450, or even an output side to control things like, say, ignition or nitrous kit or other components that you would like to run for the FuelTech. However, for this video in particular, and just to make it nice, easy, straightforward, we're just going to focus on the data logging component of it. So we're going to go ahead and plug in every single component that's on it and see just how long it actually takes us to do this. All right, so let's do this engine bay. First thing, CPC to the wall. Next, oil pressure. Followed by water temp. Then fuel pressure. Doing 102 now. Moving on to the next. And that's it. That's our engine bay. Let's move on to the inside. Very simple. Main connector, back of the ECU. Now, if it was a 450, that's the only connector you need. In this case, it's a 550, so that goes in the A location. Now, nanos. They've already been routed, so pretty simple, but we click and click. And that's pretty much it. Now, we do have 2 more sensors that this car is not equipped with, so we're not going to be running them, but they are part of the Sportsman harness and are ready to go in case you do have them. Trans temperature and drive shaft sensor. Other than that, this car is using the rest of the data logging on the harness, and the only remaining thing is power and ground in the back. Let's go. So there's not a lot going on back here, but it is very important to do it right. This car is already wired up, so I'm just going to show you on the harness what you're looking for. These are what the leads look like. This will be your ground, this will be your power. The ground goes directly to the battery. Not close to the battery, not to a bolt that's somewhere in the vicinity of it, directly to the battery. Very, very important. And your power, you're going to send this main power to the other side of your main switch on your car, right? So the side that when you turn it on is powering the car, that's where that one's going to go to. Then we have this thin little guy right here. This is what would be like our key switch, right? So this one is going to power up the ECU actually, right? So we want this one also on the output side of the main power so that the ECU powers up anytime that you have your main power on. That way you can still see your gauges and things like that. Now, to avoid the nanos being powered up all the time, if you wire it the way I just mentioned, we have this little loop here that basically, if you don't want the nanos to be powered on the whole time when the ECU is on with the main power of the car, you can interrupt these, put a switch, usually your ignition switch, so that the nanos only come on when the car is about to be fired up. And there it is. Just like that, we've installed a data logging system into a working race car. All we have left to do is set it up in FT Manager. Let's go wrap it up. All right, so here we are at the computer. Let's go ahead and get this set up. First thing we're going to need to do is find the manual for the harness so that we know where everything goes. So FuelTech.net, support tab, manuals, click, scroll down a little bit. Here's the harness section, and we are looking for the FT450/550 Sportsman Data Logging A Harness manual, which we have found. And there we go. Now scroll down till we find what we're looking for, which is the pinout. And here is the output side, which we are not messing with in this occasion. So here it is. Page 10 of the manual has all the whites, which are our inputs, and what is the default setting for them. So now that we know where each white goes, or each one of our inputs, let's go to FT Manager and get it set up. All right, now that we're here, all we gotta do, go in here, Sensors and Calibration, Inputs, and here's where we're gonna enter all the stuff we just found out about. Let's click here, make some room so we can see what's going on, and here we go. So white 1, transmission temperature. So we select 1, make sure input is enabled, really important. If it's red, ain't gonna work. There you go, drop down, and you can very simply type in what we're looking for, transmission temperature, hit OK, and just like that, we have input number 1 set up. Now, you do the same thing going down each of them, with the exception of 3 and 4, which are extra inputs in this case. So for those, instead of selecting an actual sensor, you're just going to select none, and that way you can select something later for them. So now that we have all the inputs set up, now we have to select the proper sensor for each. Let's start with transmission temperature. Typically speaking, if you're doing trans temp and you got a package from us, you're going to be using the SS300. That's our small stainless steel 3/8 NPT. So it's a lot smaller sensor that'll fit in tighter areas, for example, a pan on a transmission. So we select that. Next one, drive shaft RPM. This does not require any further setup in this screen. 3, none, so if we wanted to, we can even just go ahead and turn that off. Same here. Engine temperature. Typically speaking, it's going to be the GM temperature sensor. Fuel pressure. We have all of these here in our drop down, but the normal one is PS150. Now that being said, there are some of you guys that use carburetors, which you're gonna get a PS30 from FuelTech. However, that's not part of the ones on the drop down, but very easy to fix. So you select PS150 so that you get the proper calibration for a pressure sensor. Then select custom. If you notice, 0.5 and 4.5 are the voltage references. 0.5 equals 0, and 4.5 equals the maximum level of that sensor in particular, whatever it reads. In this case, it's 149.98 because it's 0 to 150. We're just going to click here and change this to 29.998. Hit OK. And that is the configuration for a PS30. This works with any 5-volt pressure sensor. You can calibrate it in the same way. All right, moving on. Pressure sensor for oil. Same thing, PS150, most common by far. Can also be the PS300, but PS150 is the most common, so we'll go ahead and select that. And that's it. So just like that, we have all our inputs selected, and we have all the sensors assigned to the proper input. Now all we have left to do is set up in the dashboard so we can actually see it. And we're going to go down to interface settings, dashboard setup. Here is where we're going to put all of the graphics that we need for all the sensors, all the gauges, if you will. First thing we're going to do up here, select top corner. And let's see, first one that we're going to want to see is oil pressure. So we do that there. And now you have the ability to change the size of the tile. So 1 by 1, 2 by 1, 2 by 2, etc. So we're going to go ahead and make this a 2 by 2. Now, something that you can do with all of these is set exhibition alerts. So for example, here, if we activate the lower for the oil pressure, anytime that it is below, let's say, 15 psi, then it's going to turn this little box or wherever it's selected red. which will be a nice indicator for like fast referencing something that's outside of parameters. I personally like to do the bottom end and the top end of it. So I don't want to see my fuel pressure ever over like, I don't know, 125. That's probably still a little high, but point being, set parameters. So if it's too low or if it's too high, it'll show red. It'll only be correct, or like it should not require your attention when it's just black and blends into the rest of the dash. All right, so there we go. We set up that first one. Now let's do this others in the same way. All right, and there are the main ones that we had. So we have oil pressure, fuel pressure, trans temperature. Now you'll notice that we have RPM here and that we didn't set it up. So just for the record, there is the ability to expand this harness. You can add RPM, you can even control things, trans brakes, use the delay box function. So you have a lot of options, but this was meant to show you the base configuration of it and how quick and easy you can get it done. All right, so we have our inputs selected, the sensors assigned to the proper inputs, and we have our dashboard set up. All we have left to do is come here, write the ECU to make sure it saves all the changes we just made. And once the ECU comes back up, just like that, you're configured with your brand new FuelTech Sportsman harness. And we're done. We successfully installed the Sportsman harness, we have programmed it in the FT Manager, and now we have a full functioning data logger for you to gather all the information when you go racing. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you at the races.